Imagine if we went back in time and gave an NFL team a cheat sheet for the draft, telling them exactly who the best players are in the position they are drafting for the first and second rounds, occasionally giving them a little nudge when it comes to free agency and who they shouldn't let go. What would those teams look like now if they were able to always play the draft perfectly? That's what I'm here to try and answer. And here we are, the second to last episode of this entire thing. We are here with the Falcons, the Super Bowl runner-ups, if you will. And now, of course, you expect a team that makes it to the Super Bowl to have drafted well. Let's jump into it, and we start straight away in 2014 with the 6th overall pick. The Falcons selected Jake Matthews at tackle, and now I was stuck between calling this not bad and saying Taylor Lewan would have been a better pick, or just outright correct, but I'm going outright correct. Then we have Andy Levitri at left guard, at center of course Alex Mack, and then at the right guard position in 2012 with the 55th overall pick, the Falcons selected Peter Cons at center. However, we're going to make a slight change because we need it here with Chris Chester having retired, and instead of Peter Cons, they could have taken Brandon Brooks instead, and then we finish off the line with Ryan Schrader. And then at the tight end position, we'll go with Levine Toilolo, but probably Austin Hooper will have a bigger role next year as well, but that finishes that, and we can move on to the wide receivers. So, our number one wide receiver in 2011, the Falcons traded away a lot of real estate to move up to the 6th overall pick and select Julio Jones, and that of course was the correct pick. Our number 2 guy, Mohamed Sanu, and then finishing it off to take the top off the defense, we have Taylor Gabriel. So let's move on to the fullback position. Patrick DeMarco obviously has cashed in, moved on. Derek Coleman, one of the 2 options they have right now. Then at the running back position, Tevin Coleman, as well as of course Devonta Freeman, and at the quarterback position, the reigning NFL MVP, Matt Ryan. And that is the offense. We already know they're good, just the one technical minor change of Brandon Brooks instead of last year's Chris Chester. Interesting to see what they end up doing at that position. And of course, Derek Coleman instead of Patrick DeMarco, but that's not a change, that's just an actual real life change. Let's move on to the defense. So starting as always at free safety, we have Ricardo Allen. Our strong safety is Keanu Neal. Then moving on to the linebackers, and it's a bit of a mess here. Deion Jones holding down the middle linebacker spot. We'll put Devondre Campbell there at right outside linebacker. And then, you know, Leroy Reynolds, basically the only other linebacker on the roster that I could find on this website. Leroy Reynolds there holding down the left outside linebacker spot, but we know they'll probably just play a lot of nickel anyway. And with that said, let's move on to the cornerbacks. And in 2013, with the 22nd overall pick, the Falcons selected Desmond Trufant, and I'm going to say that was the correct pick. Now, Xavier Rhodes is someone they could have taken instead, who was taken after him, but I'm going to stick with Desmond Trufant. Then that same year, with the 60th overall pick, the Falcons selected Robert Alford, and again, I'm going to say the correct pick. Now, Tyrann Mathieu, we did put him in another team, technically could have been taken as well. However, I explained why I sometimes avoid Tyrann Mathieu in terms of this. Also, technically more of a free safety anyway. And more importantly, if you get a pick 6 off Tom Brady in a Super Bowl, I think that's about as much of an argument you need to make as the fact that you are the correct pick. But let's move on to our final cornerback. In 2015, with the 42nd overall pick, the Falcons selected Jalen Collins, and I'm calling that a not bad pick. However, I feel like Ronald Darby probably would have been a better pick. That completes the Falcons cornerbacks. Let's move on to the defensive line, and we start, of course, in 2015 with the 8th overall selection, Vic Beasley, and the reigning NFL sack leader, of course, is the correct pick. Then on the other side, you've got a couple of choices. Maybe it'll be Brooks Reed, maybe it'll be Adrian Claiborne, who knows? But they've got the defensive tackle position pretty figured out right now, and we start with a swap. In 2014, with the 37th overall pick, the Falcons selected Rashid Hageman, and I'm going to go ahead and say Timmy Jernigan probably would have been a better pick, but it's all kind of irrelevant because ahead of him, we have Grady Jarrett, and then of course, alongside him, the recent free agent signing, we have Dontari Poe, and that completes this Falcons team. And now for most of these teams, I've always been, you know, saying things like, oh, do you think they'll make it to a Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. But for a team that was in the Super Bowl last year, it's not really worth asking, do you think they can make it to a Super Bowl with this team? Because, well, they made it to a Super Bowl without having drafted technically perfectly. The big question for the Falcons is, of course, how do they adapt to life without Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator? Although just looking at the talent, I think they'll do all right.